Humans have invented a lot of crazy things to get from point A to point B. We tied little boxes to horses and put them on wheels, shot ourselves down rails and metal tubes, and pedaled about on oversized bicycles before eventually inventing the car. Since the first motor car graced the roads back in 1886, certain people have had some unique ideas about how to improve the concept. From flying cars to double-wide limousines, we're about to take a look at some of the funniest and craziest cars ever made. Cramp car. When BMW heard the phrase personal transportation in the 1950s, they must have taken it very literally, if the Isetta is anything to go by. Measuring in at just 7.4 by 4.5 feet, the Isetta is one of the most minuscule cars ever built. You might not be surprised to learn the Isetta was originally made by a company called ISO, which designed scooters and refrigerators, seeing as it looks like a cross between the two. BMW eagerly bought the design and license from them, as German regulations at the time allowed people to drive smaller cars with only a motorcycle driver's license. To make the Isetta as small as possible, the car has no trunk and only one door, which the steering wheel is attached to. The Isetta could only hold about 5 gallons of gas, but was surprisingly economical, and was the first car to ever achieve a fuel consumption rate of 78 miles to the gallon. Though, as you might guess, it wasn't very powerful, having a top speed of 53 miles per hour and just 12 horsepower to play with, which is less than most lawnmowers have today. Still, people loved the little Isetta, and it was the best-selling single-cylinder car in the world upon release. It cost $1,048, or about $10,366 today. Though the little engine that could fell out of style in the 60s, Swiss company Micromobility are giving it a reboot with their tiny electric 2-seat Microlino car, which will be available soon. Being cramped is about to be back in style. Mood tube. What is the future of travel? High-speed international rail? Flying cars? Commercial space travel? According to Toyota, it's a weird little pod that changes color when you're hungry. What you're currently looking at isn't an unused vehicle from Tron or a sci-fi Isetta redesign, but Toyota's vision of the future, the FV2. I'd have guessed that stood for something cool like future variant, but apparently it's fun vehicle. Cute. The pod fits a single passenger and is driven by simply shifting your body weight, so it's more like a Segway than a car. Although this super Segway comes with super strange features. For starters, the FV2 is able to change colors depending on the mood of the driver. If you're struggling to think of any way that could ever be useful, just you wait, because the FV2 can be driven standing up. As far as I can tell, Toyota has never actually explained this strange decision. Maybe it's so you can stretch your legs or get some air. Definitely more effective than just rolling a window down. The pod was first shown off in 2013, but as far as we know, there are no plans to make it commercially available anytime soon. It's speculated that if it went on the market tomorrow, it could go for up to $45,000. If nothing else, this mood tube is a good way of advertising your road rage to the world. Or you could just stand up and let them know yourself. Need for Speed. In 1998, British car manufacturer TVR had a dream. They wanted to win Le Mans, the prestigious 24-hour race held near the French town of the same name. To do this, they created the Cerberus Speed 12, an absolute demon of a car. It was powered by a 7.7-liter V12 engine made by Frankensteining 2 previous Cerberus engines together. To further stretch that engine's power, the car weighed only 2,200 pounds. For perspective, NASCAR requires all their cars to weigh at least 3,300 pounds. Despite being limited to an impressive 675 brake horsepower, the car could reportedly hit 60 miles per hour in less than 3 seconds. Unfortunately, the Speed 12 was never allowed to race in Le Mans, as some last-minute rule changes meant the car couldn't compete. So TVR made the logical decision to make the Speed 12 commercially available. They needed to modify it, of course, to make it road safe. Just kidding, they actually made it faster. The modified Speed 12 had a brake horsepower between 800 and 960. In a test environment, it reached speeds greater than the McLaren F1, the fastest car in the world at the time. with a top speed of 231 miles per hour. To put that in perspective, the best-selling car in the US in 1998 was the Toyota Camry, with a top speed of 124 miles per hour. So why wasn't this death car made available to the public? Well, one day Peter Wheeler, the head of TVR, took his own creation for a spin. His thoughts when he got back? Basically, holy crap, we can't let people drive this thing. It's too dangerous. You heard that right. A car company CEO actually made a decision for the common good over pure profit. Elon Musk, take note. Water wheels. Imagine this. It's been a long, stressful day at work. You're driving home, coming up on a bridge, when you're greeted by the unholiest traffic jam you've ever seen. Well, why not turn your car into a boat and drive across the water? Because that's just not possible, right? Well, tell that to Quant Group, who in 1961 created the water-faring amphicar. Though unassuming from the front, if you peeked behind the amphicar, you'd see two propellers in addition to the car's usual exhaust pipe, allowing it to sail with ease. While it's impressive the amphicar worked at all, it was plagued with issues. After forking over up to $28,660 in today's money, you'd have to insure the vehicle twice, once as a car and once as a boat. You'd need that insurance too because the amphicar was delicate. It'd fill with water if you didn't pull a lever to make the doors watertight, and even then it needed to be serviced after every float. Additionally, you'd be the laughingstock of car and boat owners alike because the amphicar was slow. It had a top speed of just 70 miles per hour on land and 7 knots in the water. Assuming conditions weren't choppy, that's about 3 times walking speed. This is why the amphicar was sometimes called the fastest boat on land and the fastest car in the water. It was discontinued in 1967, but we've come a long way with our water wheels since then. Allow me to introduce the Dobbertin Surface Orbiter. This bizarre rocket-looking vehicle was built by Rick Dobbertin over the course of 4 years using his entire life savings and an old milk tanker. Rick spared no expense as the Orbiter was equipped with a 250 horsepower engine, an ocean navigation system, and separate steering wheels for both land and sea. Rick built the Orbiter so he and his wife Karen could go on a unique romantic journey around the world. Unfortunately for Rick, being in a cramped, shaky tube in the middle of the ocean didn't do wonders for his marriage. When they departed on their grand journey in 1993, Karen quickly became seasick and the two argued constantly. The Dobbertins divorced not long after returning home. When asked, his wife said despite everything, she'd gladly attempt the voyage on the Orbiter again, but not with Rick. Ouch. Avatar 2: The Future. There was a time not too long ago when James Cameron's Avatar was everywhere. It was the highest grossing film of all time, had some video game adaptations, and even earned a $400 million theme park. Although the film's weirdest legacy must be the AVTR, or Avatar, one of the coolest concept cars ever built. For starters, Mercedes-Benz's Avatar is equipped with slick glowing wheels that can be used to indicate even from the side. These weird wheels aren't just for show though, because the Avatar is able to move sideways like a crab. Oh my god, imagine never having to parallel park ever again. The Avatar theming of the car comes from its most distinctive features, its skin. These little panels on the back of the car tilt and turn in response to the environment and look like little hair follicles. They're used to alter the car's aerodynamics and increase its braking power. But the most baffling element of the Avatar is the fact it has no steering wheel. It's entirely controlled by what could be called a car mouse, a weird pad you rest your palm on and tilt to control the vehicle. Great, now I have to worry about wrist cramps even when I'm driving to work. The Avatar has a top speed of 223 miles per hour and a 469 horsepower engine. So even though it's based on science fiction, it has some real performance power. Though no release date has been set for the car, its speculated pricing will start at around $39,000 when it does. Who knows whether we'll see it or the Avatar sequel first. I mean, come on, it's been over a decade, James. The suit car. Though it might sound hard to believe, people only put wheels on suitcases in 1961. That means it took humanity the same amount of time to make a rolly bag as it did to launch a man into space. Crazier still is the fact that just 30 years later, some fruitcake in Mazda decided to attach a motor and steering wheel to that rolly bag. This is the Mazda suitcase car, and it was the winner of Mazda's 1991 Fantasy Art competition. The goal of the event was for employees to create the most unique and innovative mode of transport they could. And I think you'll agree, the suitcase car is, at the very least, unique. The vehicle was made from a Samsonite suitcase which could be opened and folded into a minuscule drivable car. Despite its tiny size, the suitcase car could reach speeds of up to 18 miles per hour, and on a full tank of fuel could drive for 2 hours. If it didn't look ridiculous, this might have made it a decent form of inner-city travel. In the end, Mazda only commissioned a few prototypes before deeming it an unprofitable venture, and today only one survives. This must have been sad news for its inventors, who apparently wanted to make airport navigation easier. I don't know about you, but I'd find driving a tiny car at 18 miles per hour through airport traffic a little more stressful than just calling a cab. Peeved off. So far, we've seen some pretty cool future car designs, but there's something a little soulless about them. Well, here's a more wholesome vision of the future. Introducing the Pivo 2. This adorable, entirely electric egg of a car was designed by Nissan in 2007, and at the very least presented a bold and unique conceptualization of the future. An update of their original 2005 Pivo concept, the Pivo 2 prioritized convenience over flashiness. The wheels of the Pivo 2 each had their own motor and were in little pods detached from its main body. This meant that they could rotate, allowing the car to move in any direction. The body could also swivel around 360 degrees so it could be entered or exited from any point. The Pivo 2's greatest feature, however, has to be its talking robot head. This little dude would operate as your sat-nav, cheerily giving you directions, information, and even compliments. But that's not all. It would also detect what mood the driver was in and try to cheer them up if they were sad. In 2011, Nissan demonstrated the Pivo 3, which is sadly lamer in every way. It lacked the handling of the Pivo 2 and, most importantly, ditched the robot head. What happened to those babies? Annoyingly, that was the last we heard from the Pivo line. I know the Avatar and FV2 are cool and all, but I'd much rather live in the cute singing robot car future. Wouldn't you? Let me know in the comments down below. And be sure to like and subscribe for more soulful futuristic content. The Limo Master. Jay Orberg is a magical mechanic. He's responsible for movie vehicles such as the Flintstones car, Kit from Knight Rider, the 1989 Batmobile, and Back to the Future's classic DeLorean. With such an impressive rap sheet, it's hard to believe the man's zaniest car creations were off-screen. Orberg has dedicated his free time to creating the craziest limos you've ever seen. Take, for example, his wide limo. Powered by 2 Cadillac FWD engines, this broad boy is 30 feet long and 2.5 times the width of a regular limo. I reckon that gives it a girth of nearly 15 feet, which is enough room to plop a king-size bed down in the middle. The crown jewel of his collection must be this, though, the American Dream. This beast cost $4 million to make and is the world's longest car according to the Guinness Book of World Records. Measuring in at a mind-boggling 100 feet long, the American Dream features 26 wheels, a king-sized waterbed, a helipad, and even a swimming pool. Talk about an impressive collection. Being that long, the American Dream could only travel at very slow speeds, and obviously it couldn't handle corners well. It had a hinge in the middle that helped it navigate tight turns, but it needed 2 drivers in separate compartments to make that happen. Performing a properly tight turn with something that long is practically impossible, and even if it could, it'd look just as ridiculous as this Photoshop, if not worse. Put it in H. A question for the olds in the audience. What were you doing in your first year of college? Partying? Pulling stupid pranks? Joining nerdy clubs? Maybe just trying to work up the courage to do those things. My wasted youth aside, I bet you weren't designing futuristic cars for multi-million-dollar companies, but that's what students at Pforzheim University were doing. Partnering with German car manufacturer Opel, they created this offbeat vision of the future. Meet the Opel H. Unlike the Avatar or FV2, the Opel H is designed around the concept of long-distance autonomous travel. As such, it places emphasis on comfort over everything else. As the car is completely autonomous, there's no need for a steering wheel, so there's more space for legroom. The seats in the rear of the car are also faced backwards, enjoying a similar amount of room. The space between the front and rear seats is used for storage as opposed to a void between the passengers and driver. The front and back of the car is also entirely transparent, allowing you to really soak in the miles and miles of Autobahn. The Opel H is a mere concept for now, which sucks for me as I'm always super cramped in regular cars. What? I'm 6'7". You couldn't tell from my voice? Half pint 20 cup. Is it a bike? Is it a car? Nope, it's the Peugeot 20 cup. This amazing automobile almost looks like someone started building the back end of the car and just suddenly gave up. But there's actually a term for this wacky vehicle. The Peugeot 20 Cup is technically a reverse trike with a tadpole setup. What this means practically is that the front half is your standard car, but the back half features only one wheel behind the driver's seat. You know, a car bike. The 20 Cup was built to test and show off the then new motor for the 2005 Mini Cooper. Despite its small size, the engine was a fairly powerful collaborative effort between BMW and PSA. The 4-cylinder engine generates up to 170 brake horsepower, which is significantly more than most commercially available cars at 120 bhp. While the 20 Cup's top speed was never recorded, the 2005 Cooper reaches up to 143 miles per hour. The 20 Cup can go from 0 to 60 in under 5 seconds, which is faster than the Cooper at 6.6 seconds. Unless Peugeot comes out with official stats though, we'll never know how well this awkward-looking little brother measures up. The Octo Auto. It might surprise you to hear, but people were designing strange future cars before most folks had even seen a car. M.O. Reeves, for example, in 1911 looked at the still new car and thought, man, you could stick way more wheels on that thing. This is the Octo Auto, and no prizes for figuring out where its name comes from. To be fair to Reeves, his 8-wheeler idea did make some sense. In the 1910s, roads were bumpier and car tires weren't as tough, so they didn't last as long as they do today. Inspired by train cars, Reeves understood that adding more wheels would mean a more even weight distribution in an automobile, and so less wear on each individual tire. The design worked incredibly well, handling bumps and potholes much better than other cars of the era, but the Octo Auto was just too expensive to catch on. In order to make a profit, the Octo Auto needed to be sold for $3,200 or over $93,000 in today's money. It's a real shame it didn't catch on too. Can you imagine how modern cars would look today if it had? Radical Air. For some reason, ever since its invention, people have been looking at cars which are clearly designed for road transportation and thinking, but what if I could fly? One such individual was Stephen Klein, who spent the last 20 years of his life making that dream a reality. Founding Klein Vision in 2017, he worked tirelessly with scientists and engineers around the world to bring his sci-fi vision to life. After intense simulations were carried out at Brno University of Technology, Slovak company SK Model produced special composite materials for the project, and vigorous test drives were conducted in Shanghai, China. After 4 years and untold sums of money later, Klein's air car successfully completed an inner-city flight in 2021. The vehicle's wings are foldable and retractable, so it can transition easily from driving to flight mode. The air car's aerodynamic fuselage has enough room for one driver and one passenger, both of which are equipped with parachutes in case of emergency. Information on the air car's design is protected by dozens of patents, so we don't know much about its speed, fuel consumption, or cost. Still, if this is the future, I'm excited to see what high-speed police chases are going to look like. Hot Wheels. Remember in old cartoons when cars would go really fast, their tires would catch on fire? While this next car's wheels aren't literally on fire, they're still a red-hot blast from the past. The 1958 Golden Sahara got its name from the fact that its wheels glow a bright, fiery orange. According to creator Jim Street Skonzakes, these were supposed to make it extra visible in the dark. Developed by Goodyear of blimp fame, these tires were made of neothane, a synthetic translucent rubber that was filled with internal lighting. Though obviously cool, the Sahara was also way ahead of its time in more practical ways. A sensor beneath the car would hit the brakes if it detected something move in front of it, and the Sahara could be partially controlled through a small remote control. Though exact specs aren't known, the Golden Sahara likely utilized a Copper-Lincoln V8 engine that produced 225 horsepower. As you might imagine, this bold and futuristic car was not cheap. At the time, it was claimed to be worth $75,000, or $635,000 today. The only known Golden Sahara in existence was bought at auction in 2018 for $350,000 and was restored to its former glory in 2019. Talk about a hot rod. Make it Wumbo. Volkswagen's cute, compact little Beetle has charmed the world for decades. Just don't Google who commissioned the original. Sordid past aside, Richard Tupper and his son took one look at the tiny car and decided they liked it, but that they'd like it better, bigger. That's why they built the Huge Bug, a fully functional 1959 Volkswagen Beetle that's 40% larger than the original. The creation of this mockery of Volkswagen engineering was no easy task, however. Tupper and Son had to scan every single part of the original Beetle, increase its size by 40% in 3D editing software, and then go about building the juiced up parts themselves. Their efforts paid off though, as they claim the Huge Bug cost them 3 years and $15,000 to make, but is now worth an estimated $1.25 million. An 840% return ain't bad. I mean, what else were they going to do with an old VW Beetle? Roll it into a ball and turn it into an exhibition in a shopping mall like this one in Amsterdam? I think I prefer it bigger rather than baller. But in case you're wondering, as big as the Huge Bug is, it isn't the largest upscaling of a car on record. That honor goes to this unbelievable behemoth. It was commissioned by the eccentric billionaire Sheikh Hamad bin Hamdan Al Nahyan, colorfully nicknamed the Rainbow Sheik. This 1950s Dodge Power Wagon is 64 times larger than the truck it's based on, stands around 20 feet tall, and weighs a whopping 55 tons. The interior is apparently a fully livable house, complete with bedroom and bathroom. What's more, the truck isn't just for show, it's actually drivable, though it only has a 300 horsepower engine. So not really a power wagon. The Buttmobile. Finally, we arrive at what must be one of the strangest, fuggliest, and most thoroughly baffling cars ever built. This is the Roach Coach, and in case you couldn't tell just by looking at it, its name is indeed spelt with alternating caps. Now this entry might be cheating a little bit, as the 1978 Roach Coach was a show car, i.e. it was never meant to be driven, just shown off. And yes, if you can believe it, this thing was considered decorative. Designed by Ed Newton and built by Dan Brooks and Dan Woods, the car was supposedly constructed just to impress crowds and get their company Roach Inc. some attention. I mean, it worked because they're still around today. The three were evidently quite proud of their abomination, as there were dozens of pictures of embarrassed models trying their best to pose next to it. Now, some may look at the two large cockpit bulbs and see a pair of eyes, but to me, I can't help but see something else.
Feels like I'm wearing nothing at all. Quit it!
What do you think? Would you like to take a spin in any of these kooky cars? Let me know down in the comments below, and thanks for watching.